In the world of professional wrestling, the name Poffo was pretty famous. I actually had the honor of working with two Poffos in my life. Today we are going to speak to the younger of the two. He is an author, he is a poet, and in true fashion, he turns the tables on me for a little bit during this interview. Welcome to Beyond the Lens and my interview with the genius, Lanny Poffo. So thanks for joining us today, Lanny. Tell us how wrestling came to be a part of your life.
I'm just the luckiest man in the world. I was born December 28, 1954, and my father was already a wrestler, so I didn't have to buy a wrestling scholarship. Actually, I wanted to be a baseball player, but I couldn't hit, run, throw, field, or think. So it was either go on welfare or become a wrestler. And I started when I was 18, and 21 years, not too bad. And I'm relatively injury-free.
That's great. Not a lot of people can say that.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit what it was like to work with your father and your brother.
Well, let's see. Maybe you've heard of my brother.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. In fact, there was quite a picture of you two. I was very, brought me right back to the old days. I was just lucky to be in the family. I was the youngest. And now I'm the oldest. I mean, when I reached 59, that was a lot to grasp for me. So I have to say, Randy really helped me because he was really OCD on every little minutia of wrestling. And then I never forget the time he asked me for help. And that never happened, ever. But
Tell me about that.
Many years ago, believe it or not, he wasn't good at interviews. That was the missing piece of his puzzle. He was already great in the ring. He already built a fantastic body. He got himself a gimmick, Macho Man Randy Savage. But his interviews weren't good. And this was 1978. So he asked me if I could help him with the interviews. And I said, wow, he wants my help. So I said, well, if you're going to be a savage and you got savage hair and savage appearance and savage name, who's the greatest savage type wrestler you've ever seen? And he's thought about it and said it's a cross between Pampero Firpo and the king of Iakea, Curtis the Bull Iakea. Curtis, he had many. So I said, remember in Hawaii when they did these bumpers or stingers for the station? You ever heard that expression?
Mm-mm.
Well, they played about 50 times a day. Pampero Firpo going, you are watching #1 station in Hawaii. Oh, yeah. They play that every day ad nauseum. I said, why don't you try to read that? He says, you are watching the #1 station in Hawaii. Oh, yeah. And I went, he's got it. It felt like brand new money. So he said, well, do you think I should ask Pampero Firpo if I can use Oh Yeah? I said, no, he stole it from the Beatles. But the Beatles did it their way. And Louis Armstrong did it his way, yeah. So right. It doesn't matter who does Oh Yeah. It's everybody had the Beatles and Randy, oh yeah. And Pampero Firpo, he was Armenian with accent. He was from Argentina, Buenos Aires, but Armenian, so he had a strange accent. Oh yeah. And for all your listeners, go on YouTube, please. Check out Pampero Firpo, and you'll see what I mean. Because he just passed away at just short of his 90th birthday.
Wow.
And with Curtis Iakea, that's where Randy stole the back to the camera deal. Like, ooh, yeah, what's going on? And then, yeah, you know. So we were lucky enough to be exposed to many groundbreakers in the interviews. Okay, and then I promise you, he spent about 3 months in the mirror, nonstop, practicing his stuff, and then he went from the outhouse to the penthouse in interviews. Okay, he became the most imitated man in wrestling.
Yeah.
Except for the Iron Sheik. You stupid! Who do you think you are? You know. So there's been a few, but when you're imitated, I think that's pretty great.
Yeah. They say it's the most sincere form of flattery.
That's what they say. Yes.
So tell me about your relationship as brothers. What was that like?
Well, guess who was the alpha? Yeah, it was him. He was the alpha male, and I was beta, or even less if there was one. So he was, but he was always on my team, and even when he teased me, that's how he showed his love. Okay, mm-hmm. So I wouldn't have gotten as far as I got if it wasn't for him. So I have beautiful memories of that.
Mm. And I know in May of 2011, we actually lost Randy. What would you like people to know about him?
Yes, I'll tell you what you can know about him. He always believed in giving the fans everything he had. It didn't matter if you lived in a small town, you were going to get the costume and the music and the performance that he gave to Madison Square Garden. Just because you lived in Paducah, Kentucky. You know, I came from a small town too, so here's the deal, you know. And he would turn the dial up. He wouldn't take a day off. He wouldn't, you know, there was an expression, oh, that was a night off. I don't want to take a night off. I want to be on, you know. He thought that you were like a shoplifter or a pickpocket. If you were going to, they charge money at the door, and if you don't give them the Macho Man Randy Savage. Also, he knew which costume he wore on what day to make sure that nobody saw that costume again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I can't even remember what I wore yesterday.
Well, I kind of keep it basic. So, and
it's interesting that you say that about Randy and that he gave that, because I remember that. And I actually, from seeing that at such a young age when I worked with him, I have carried that into what I do because it did leave such an impression on me.
Maximum effort?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, see, it would bother him if he didn't have a good match. But me, I believed in do your best, forget the rest. Mm-hmm. That was my theory. And which is one of the reasons I didn't get as far as he did, but it's another reason I'm still here. Because mm-hmm. you won't burn out if you don't be nicer to yourself and say, well, I did my best, it wasn't good enough, but maybe next time.
Right.
You know, and then, but there are some people that are perfectionists, and I believe that's not good for your health.
Yeah.
Okay?
So
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about you. How is the genius persona born?
Born out of, I would say, I was tired of being a jabroni, and Randy and I would think about little gimmicks that, I thought of the name Boy Genius, because that's the kid in class that, oh, you know, and then, so naturally, because my brother was who he was able to present it and everything, and Vince says, I like it, we'll just, instead of Boy Genius, we'll just call you the Genius Lanny Poffo, do 6 vignettes, and then we'll drop Lanny Poffo. And I said, nothing doing, Vince. It's either my way. No, I didn't say that. You know how it is.
Yeah, because nobody says that to Vince.
Well, they may say it, but then they're gone.
Yeah.
And I'm eventually we're all gone. I mean, you're gone, I'm gone. But no, I would never say that. So we did 6 vignettes, and then all of a sudden, the genius was born. And what I tried to do, I stole a little bit from the Pink Panther, Peter Sellers. I knew that, you idiot, that was only testing you. It was like a one-joke movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I love Peter Sellers and I also, I even like Steve Martin. Some people think it was sacrilegious to, take a lot of guts, but he did it his way.
Right.
And, they went sequels, so it couldn't have been too bad. So anyway, my point is, I tried to give the fans a little bit of joy. And I wasn't playing a genius. I was slightly superior, but thought he was even smarter, and then wound up with cake on his face.
Mm-hmm.
And then, anyway, just give the fan. It was a little bit of a comedy. Yeah.
So tell me then about your best and worst memories from your days in wrestling.
Okay. Best memory. You're not going to believe this, but I had already been given my future endeavor speech.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that is?
Mm-mm.
Good luck on your future endeavors.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I found myself in St. Louis, and I was just filling out my bookings. St. Louis on a Friday, and then Saturday it was going to be 2 o'clock in Milwaukee and 8 o'clock in Madison, Wisconsin. So I'm not going to exaggerate. You could see your hand in front of your face, but it was very, very foggy. And even though I'm not a real genius, I knew that the Mississippi River, it would take a long time before the sun would burn through the fog in the morning, because of the condensation fog, So I thought to myself, I've got a ticket to go 6 in the morning to Milwaukee. And I said, there's no way they're going to take off in that fog. It was really bad fog. And I said, if they do take off, I don't want to be on that plane. So plan A was take a bus. Plan B was take a rental car. And I'm glad the bus turned out because I was exhausted. Mm-hmm. So I took the bus to Chicago, changed buses, and went to Milwaukee. And I was there when they were setting up the ring. I told the agent, Jack Lanza, that I'm sure there's nobody coming from St. Louis because I took the bus. And if they're on the plane, then they're going to be missing in action. So there are about 7 wrestlers that were going to do the Milwaukee and then Madison from St. Louis. And sure enough, they didn't make it. So I was part of the solution, not part of the problem. Then in Madison, a bunch of the wrestlers got me and said, where were you? I said, in Milwaukee, where you were supposed to be. Well, how did you get there? Why do you think they call me the genius? So I felt really good about that. But the actual best memory, of course, is my match with Hulk Hogan on NBC. And that's where, thank you, Hulk, for doing that for me. And I became, for one brief shining moment, drinking from the silver chalice of success. And then the worst moment of my wrestling career, I didn't have any.
That's good.
It was all good. That's an expression. But tomorrow I'm going to Hamburg, Germany. If they fly, I don't know. Mm-hmm. With the coronavirus, or I don't know. Is this live?
No, it'll be probably a couple of weeks out, but I'm sure we're still going to be in the thick of it.
Right. Well, anyway, I'm checking to see if they're going to cancel, and I'm going if they don't. But I've got gloves, I've got a mask, I've got whatever. And I think it's just great at the age of 65 that I'm still invited to Germany. Next month, I'm going to be in Liverpool, England. Then I've got some friends there. I've got a bucket list that I want to see the fjords of Norway. Mm-hmm. And who gets to do that for free?
Right.
Wrestlers. And I think that's phenomenal. And I'm very, very blessed. And I'm not angry. And I'm very happy.
And I think that's important to note, too, that a lot of people don't realize exactly how much travel is involved when you're a professional wrestler.
Yeah, that's the good and the bad. Okay, mm-hmm. The bad part is the travel. The good part, you get to travel. and I love seeing the world. And going to Liverpool with the Beatles, and my daughter's all excited. Oh, you got to take a picture. My grandson's name is Harrison and Julian, the second one. So this is all Beatles related, and it was no mystery. So anyway, I got to say that unless the coronavirus strikes, I'll just say thanks for not coming earlier.
Right. Because I remember back in the day too, hearing from some of the boys that were on the road constantly. I think they were home 6 days a month or some crazy thing like that. It was a lot, and I'm sure it's got to take a toll on not just your relationships but also physically and mentally. Because I know even for me, I was on a bus every other week. So not nearly what all of the rest of you were doing. And even for me to be home seemed abnormal.
Yes, it is abnormal. So the thing is, I am divorced. I'm a one-time loser, which is better than Ric Flair. Okay. I know you're from Carolina, so he's kind of famous. But I decided to stop it at just once. And otherwise, people that get married again, that's a triumph of hope over experience. So anyway, that's a joke. You can go ahead. And not original, though. I've got a few, my poetry is original.
Now let's get into that a little bit. So not many people know that you're a published author. And how long have you been composing poetry?
Since the 5th grade.
Wow.
I was the teacher's pet and had a crush on, and we're still friends today. And I won't tell you her name because she asked me not to. So she doesn't need a bunch of wrestling fans hounding her. But she was a very strange teacher. She liked to bring out the best in people. And she sparked joy in the classroom. And it wasn't just me. Everybody loved her. The girls wanted to be like her. The boys had a crush on her. So nothing weird about me. She was just the best. And we're still friends, and I'm really proud of that. And
that's great.
Yeah, I went to her mother's 90th birthday in Archbold, Ohio. Flew into Toledo, drove to Archbold. Must have liked her a little, huh? So anyway, tremendous girl, and she's still alive. Everybody's doing fine. And if I didn't have my daughter and my 2 grandchildren, I'm kind of like the last of the Mohegans here. But because of that, it was all worthwhile. And,
that's great.
Yeah. Okay, so she got me interested. She said, the second day of school, I was really shy. You wouldn't believe it. She says, I need to see you at 3:20. What did I do? And so she comes up and says, Mr. Poffo, I've had you write 2 stories, how I spent my summer vacation, and tell me about yourself. And what you wrote was just wonderful. She says, you could be a great writer. So she tried to get me to, and then I was also lucky enough to have met a man that you may have heard of, Shel Silverstein.
Yeah.
Do you know who that is?
I do.
Where the Sidewalk Ends, Light of Day. Well, I was wrestling in Nashville in 1977, long before we met, long before WWF, WWE. And strange-looking, bald-headed man came up to me and said, hey, I'm a big fan of yours, blah, blah, blah. I saw you on TV. I got my nieces and nephews here. We're all going out to eat afterwards. And would you like to come with? And I said, sure. I didn't know who he was. But, I lived in Nashville and about an hour into it, I said, wait a minute. Shel Silverstein? She said, I think I liked you better when you didn't know who I was. And we laughed and everything. And then I saw him again in the airport in Miami when I just came back from Dominican Republic. And what a fantastic, he had aged, okay? And I said, are you Shel Silverstein? Yes. I said, well, my hair is different, and my name is Lanny Poffo. Blah. Lanny, sit down, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, then I asked him, 3,000 children start smoking every single day in North America. I was thinking about writing a book of limericks to try to get them to not smoke and to entertain them. Do you think that would be a good idea? And he said, I thought you were a smart guy, but I guess I have to reclassify you. And I went, oh, I'm going through a divorce. Don't tell me that stuff. I already felt so badly. And he says, we have freedom of speech. Speak! You mean to tell me that because my name is Shel Blanking Silverstein, that you are asking me permission to write a book if you feel you've got something in your heart? He says, speak! So all the rejection on this shoulder got knocked off, and all the Shel Silverstein knocked him off. And he wasn't a mean guy or a crazy old man. He just knew I was a lazy young man, and that got me to Microsoft Word. And next thing you know, unfortunately, I got published in 2004, and he died in 99, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So I wasn't able to say hi here, but it's still good. He inspired me.
That's great. That's a great story and important.
Yeah.
So since I know that you are a poet and I know that these things come naturally to you, would you like to share one with us?
I would do one for you. Be humble when victorious. Be noble in defeat. Be there when your neighbor hasn't got enough to eat. Try to love your enemy and always be aware that World Cup or Super Bowl, the tortoise beats the hare. Pretty?
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, Lanny, one last question for you. If you could go back and speak to the man that began this journey, knowing what you know now, what would you tell him?
I would tell him, let's see. Boy, that's a good question. I might have to give that a day. Okay, but you want a knee-jerk reaction? I'm going to tell him, you got to stand for something or you fall for anything. Don't worry about being an oddball, because that was the best thing about you. The fact that I didn't do the drugs, the fact that I didn't smoke or drink. Also, even the marriage was worth it because I have my daughter and my grandchildren. So it was all worth it. And life is not a sprint; it's a marathon. So enjoy every moment and be glad, that you've got all the blessings you do. There are some people I meet, that have nothing to be thankful for, but they're very happy. And some people have nothing in it's about the appreciation of, let's see, there was a little brook in the mountain, the cooling spray of a fountain, arousing me in emotion more than the vast, boundless ocean, for there's a wealth beyond measure in little things that we treasure. In other words, be happy about the little things, and don't be nervous or anxiety or anything. Just, we are all blessed just to be here. I mean, we all have problems, and I'm sure my brother would love to be here. You see what I mean? But I'm lucky enough to have been it, because I'll tell you the truth, I had a little bit of survivor's guilt, and I still have to get over that. Because but I just use thought replacement. No, it's still good to be here. Is that all right?
Absolutely. And we are very glad you're still here.
But tell me one thing about yourself then. What are your hobbies or interests? Tell me something, because I feel it's been one-sided.
Well, that's the whole point.
So tell me, what are your hobbies or interests besides photography, which is your business?
My entire career, my entire drive is based on showing people in a unique way for the best of who they are. I love doing that. I love sharing that. I love having people see that there's more to what meets the eye.
Wow. And what got you into photography?
I went to college for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you ever hear of Killer Kowalski?
I did.
Well, I was 12 years old when I met him, and his hobby was photography. And he convinced my father to buy me a Nikon F atomic with a Durst M600 and larger. And next thing you know, I've got all these chemicals all over the basement. And I was never able to, I love the fact that it's now digital, develop, rinse, fix, dry out. And I always had these dust spots. Couldn't get rid of them. You know the deal.
I do.
You come from the analog, right?
I do.
Yeah. So anyway, also he bought me a book by Alfred Eisenstedt. You ever heard of that?
Of course.
Life magazine and photojournalism. Big coffee table size book. So, and I have to say, yeah, you asked me that question about 5 minutes ago. What would I say? I have to apologize to you. When I said no drugs, I did steroids in 1989, and that was when I was the genius. But never trade your health for wealth, okay? Health comes first, no matter what. Okay, I got away with it, I think. But just in case anybody's listening or watching out there, no steroids. I know why I did it, but and I'm glad I pulled out the needle. But and then I'm ashamed to talk about it a little bit. But if I can help one person, doesn't that kind of meld into what your mission statement is?
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I have a friend of mine who talks a lot about core values, and it seems that you are very aware of what yours are, and you align what you do with them. And I think that's very important because not many people even know what theirs are, let alone align them.
Okay, can I tell you one quick little story?
Sure, of course.
Were you aware about the Randy going in the Hall of Fame and the crisis that I had?
No.
Okay, Randy didn't want to go into the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Okay, unless the Poffo family went in, Angelo, Randy, and Lanny. And he got the idea because the year before he died, the Von Erichs went in the Hall of Fame. Fritz, Carrie, Kevin, David, all deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. But Chris, no. And the other fellow, Mike, definitely not. Okay? So in other words, so Randy said, Randy, you suck, and you're better than Chris. And he meant...
That's a brother for you. Tell him to hear the truth.
But he that's what I missed the most, because that's how he showed his love.
Right.
Okay. And then he talked fatalistically, and he said, if anything happens to me, don't let me go in the Hall of Fame without, Dad and you. I said, okay, I promised. And my mom was there, you know what I mean? She knew. And Randy had a tendency to keep talking after he made his point. So, okay, I got it. So then John Laurinaitis called me and wanted to know, right after Randy died, wanted to know if Randy would go in Miami for 2012. And I said, sorry, but blah, blah, blah. No, we're not going to do that because that was Randy's wishes. So they never got back with me. And then my 59th birthday, I realized I had done something Randy had never done, turned 59. So I said, I'm the older brother now. And remember Spock on Star Trek?
Mm-hmm.
The many far outweigh the needs of the few or the one. I think I paraphrased that, but you understand. So I said, well, if I'm the older brother now I'm the alpha male. Not really, but due to lack of competition. So I told my mommy, I'm going to go ahead and let Randy in the Hall of Fame by himself. You can't do that. It was his wishes. I said, well, Mom, I had some wishes too, but mine were forsaken sometimes because I was the youngest. And now that I'm the oldest, I get to make all the unpopular decisions, and I've got you outnumbered. you know. So that was my. So then I guess Mark Carano called me up and asked me if I would come to WrestleMania to do interviews for the WWE Network and whatever. I said yes, and I've changed my mind about something. Let them know that I will now let Randy into the Hall of Fame by himself. So, oh my God, we'll call you back. We'll call you back. Well, about 30 minutes later, they called me back and said, we only like to do one posthumous inductee per year, and this year it's going to be Paul Bearer. So if you can just kayfabe, zip it up, don't tell anybody, until San Jose, California, then 2015, Randy will be in. And I said, okay. So I didn't tell anybody, but they leaked it. But that's their prerogative. And go on www.geniuslannypoffo.com. Genius. Amazon. Stop. Okay. Sorry.
She was already going there.
She interrupts. Okay. GeniusLannyPoffo.com. And right in the front of it has got my Hall of Fame speech for Randy. And then as you go into it, I got my match with Hogan and Selective Amnesia, Only the Good Times, my appearance on Regis Philbin, you know, the good moments. The bad, we don't need to talk about those. There aren't any bad ones, really. I took more than I gave from the business, and I took more than I gave from life. Everybody else I know gave more than they took. So I'm really lucky. But what else would you like to hear a poem about?
Your choice. Anything you want to close the show with?
Let's see. There's only one man smart enough to put Hulk Hogan down. The genius has a devastating plan. You're looking at the future World Wrestling Federation, who appeals to the modern thinking fan. When I emerge victorious, with gold around my waist, I shall be the most splendiferous of all. Don't tell me Hulk is 6'8" and I'm just 6'2". Between the ears, I'm over 10 feet tall. He wants to wrap his 24-inch pythons round my neck and give his famous, "What you gonna do?" By the power of the genius and the world's smartest man, I'll rely on my incredible IQ. Thank you.
Perfect. And that, my dear friends, was the genius. Thank you so very much for being here, Lanny.
Full of glory and renown. Thank you so much. And thanks for the memories.
Thank you. My job as a photographer is to see things in a different way, to create reactions, to frame what is seen so we can better understand. Here we take a look beyond the lens of what we may think we see or know about people, events, and situations. To subscribe, please join my mailing list, visit my YouTube channel, or look for Beyond the Lens on Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple. I'm honored by the people I work with. If you'd like to talk about shaping the way you are seen in photographs, please schedule a call. I'd love to hear from you.